They keep making these comparisons about, oh, how Trump is going to be a dictator. Wait a second. I kind of think that that's in the liberal camp, right? To be rather dictatorship-like. I mean, just go down to Brazil if you would. Go look at the Workers' Party there in Brazil. Lula runs it nowadays. President Lula, a former union organizer who then became president of Brazil, presided over Brazil, wound up in jail. His vice president wound up in jail. I got a great Brazilian story. You know, I actually sort of snuck into the Brazilian palace. Didn't technically, I mean, I was admitted by somebody who was the cabinet member in charge of technology for Brazil because they wanted to do a big special on how Brazil was growing its technology. And I was there as a CNBC correspondent, and they invited me and they said, you can have an interview with Lula. And then the PR person found out and went bonkers. Anyway, I wound up having to be escorted out. But it was easy. It was kind of interesting how easy you could get in. And I actually attended a meeting with Lula and Dilma Rousseff, et cetera, and spoke a little bit with them off the record. So I got some sort of background there from them, but did not get the official interview, unfortunately. Anyway, I would say this. You know what is so critical in Brazil, and from my reporting that I have seen down there, people don't want to have a repeat of inflation. Like, you ask them about anything, they will take anything except for inflation because they remember those horrible days when inflation was that bad, kind of like how we're going to feel after a while, right? And this is something that the central bank tries to guard against. This is partly what a central bank is always trying to do. And so they try to manage the amount of liquidity in any system, like they try and do and clearly fail at doing here in the US. They try and do the same thing in Brazil. So there's a guy named Roberto Campos Neto, and he is in charge of this down there in Brazil. You see his picture on the screen if you're watching here our YouTube channel in real time. Well, now Lula wants to gag him, doesn't want him talking because he doesn't like what he's saying. And he says that basically he's at odds with what they're trying to do because he's trying to actually keep inflation under control. So it just kind of reminds me in a similar way to what we're witnessing here. And I think it's important to think about because they're trying to write their own narrative, you guys, that has nothing to do with reality.